Well, it's finally time for us to get some plants onto our deck. If you've been here a while, you know that our deck used to be in shambles. We have just like a lot of trees over here, and it was a wooden deck that hadn't been well taken care of, and it was rotting. We had huge holes in the deck. It was honestly, it was a hazard to be on. So
Yeah, not good.
last winter or over the winter, we redid this deck. And we just wanted to give a little transformation video, what it was before, what we decided to do with our deck, and how we are going to decorate it with plants.
We chose this color especially because it goes perfectly with our landscape. As you can see, guys, and I know you saw it in some Devin's videos in the past, we had a lot of different trees around here. So we really wanted to preserve this energy here. So I think the color goes perfectly with that. We decided to put wider cables, sorry for that word, wider cables, because I wanted to put low furniture in this deck. I don't want anything that this interrupt my view from here to there. Come over here. So, thinking of putting low furniture, I want to have still the possibility to see through there, through the cable. So that's why we decided to put them. And it goes really, it's really discreet, and the view is still there. We didn't block the view. It's like goes.
So previously on our deck that was wood, lots and lots of pots, and I had too many small pots. It required a lot of time for watering, and it just kind of looked like a jumbled mess. So this time we're going to choose a little bit of a different style with regards to the sizes of the containers, and have fewer but more impactful.
Yeah.
So that's going to be our main mission when it comes to actually decorating it with plant material. All right, so we made it to summertime. We're in the beginning of summer here in Westchester, and I wanted to just talk about some of the strategies and recommendations I have for you guys that are container gardening on porches and patios and decks like we are here. Now, the first thing you notice, like we were mentioning, we have much fewer plant material out on our deck. For us, that has just created a much cleaner, clearer energy on the deck, and it doesn't take away from the surrounding forest or the other garden beds. But the plants that we have chosen, we were very strict about the plants that we chose. We chose either succulent plants that can go, handle droughts, or plants that are actually exceptionally drought tolerant, like Agapanthus and Amaryllis and Lantana. So by having these succulent plants, the Adenium, the orchid cactus, even our stephanotis and our jasmine plants, these plants I can easily go away for 5 days, and I'm not going to be worried about them getting overly stressed out from not having enough water. So choosing the right plants that can handle those long periods of time without water is essential. Now, the next thing that you'll notice is that there's a lot of good repetition going on in our container garden here on our deck. Just because it's container plants doesn't mean we can't have some sort of styling, some sort of vision of how we are creating our planting. So I have 4 desert rose, I have 2 orchid cactus, I have a stephanotis and a jasmine, which are very similar, sort of Southeast Asian tropical plants. I have a couple of different elephant ears. So I have this repetition going on from the plants that I've chosen, and that just creates a little bit better harmonized energy by having that repetition. Now, the next thing that you'll notice is that every single plant is elevated on pot feet or on wheels, and that's because I don't want to ruin the deck. The last deck was totally ruined, and so the way that I've gone about protecting the deck is to put the small pots on these little square pot feet, and then the larger plants on these triangular pot feet. You can find links to both of them, as well as some other container gardening tools and products in the description below. Just Now, another thing that I do recommend is having at least one or maybe two plants that provide some sort of fragrance. And like I was mentioning, I have a stephanotis and a jasmine, both of which produce like a gardenia, jasmine-y fragrant flower. But I don't have 3 or 4 or 5 different kind of fragrant plants. You don't want to have that sort of competition between fragrances happening on your deck. You want to have a defined fragrance, and that's why I picked these complementary fragrant plants. And so if both of them are in bloom, great. If just one of them is in bloom, excellent. But I do recommend having at least one thing with fragrance, because that's just gonna make your time on the deck even more enjoyable. And the other thing is, you can see I have, on these small tables, I have my small containers, but on the actual floor of the deck, the pots are much bigger. The smallest is like a 10-inch, but typically they're gonna be larger than that. And that's also going to just create more of, an elegant, sophisticated feeling on your porch or your patio. It fills the space out more appropriately, much less cluttered. And one thing that you can do, like you can see underneath my jasmine plant, I have a drip tray underneath there to catch any excess water for that guy, just in case. And then for one of my elephant ears, I have him sitting in a drip tray. And that's because he's probably the least drought tolerant of the bunch. So if I water and there's any excess precipitation, any excess water, he'll sit in that water and he'll soak it up as needed. And that's a great way to give a little bit of extra irrigation to plants that do want a little bit more water. And then I think having at least one, but not more than 2 hanging plants is great. I chose a lantana. This is called Lantana Mango Smoothie. And that just kind of fills out that corner with its hanging energy. And I think it's, having one hanging plant is perfect for just kind of completing the feel of your patio or your porch. And then as a centerpiece, I chose Sempervivum hens and chicks because it's low, so I can sit at the table with my wife and I'm not having a plant that's blocking our vision of our conversation, but I still get to have some sort of plant material on the deck. And I only have one plant on the railing because I don't like to have a lot of those small pots on the railings, because of the cluttered energy that brings. So maybe 1 or 2, a few of them, and I think that is all that you really need. And I do have a lot of good empty spaces on the deck, which will allow for laying out, or for me, for doing yoga. So I don't have too much furniture, I don't have too many plants, or still empty spaces. Having those empty spaces, that negative space, is what keeps that space feeling full. Actually, having too much makes it feel just hectic. So having those empty spaces is definitely going to create a full feeling, which is, ironic, but that's exactly what it does. And the last recommendation that I would have, rather than pulling a hose across your deck every day, have a large watering jug that you fill up at a spigot and water your plants by hand, but have a maximum of 3 trips to that spigot every time you need to water. If you have to go more than that, you're going to get really frustrated with watering. So I have a 3 fill up limit. So if I can't get all of my plants watered with 3 fill up, that means I have too many plants and I need to get rid of some of those plants, or maybe get a bigger jug, one of the two. So with those tips and recommendations, now you can go, have a little bit of inspiration, have, maybe that jogs your creativity, gives you some food for thought so that you can have a more enjoyable time gardening with your containers on your deck, on your porches and patios, and still have a beautiful situation that's not overly time consuming or stressful about watering, things like that. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to our channel. We're bringing new plant-related content every single week. Thanks for joining me here on Plant Vibrations with me, Devin Wallien, and my wife, Samantha Wallien. I'll catch you guys later. Ciao.